Aliens from outer space? Mass destruction on a global scale? Germs and bacteria are good? All this can only mean one thing. We're comparing War of the Worlds on this episode of Retro versus Remake. Welcome to another episode of Retro versus
Remake.
The series where we compare movies and their remakes. Join us as we answer the question, should this remake exist? Today's films are War of the Worlds. So let's get right into it. War of the Worlds, the original, was made in 1953, starring Gene Barry, Anne Robinson, Les Tremayne, and Louis Martin. Directed by Byron Haskin. Screenplay by Bar Linden. Music by Laith Stevens. War of the Worlds, 2005, starring Tom Cruise, Dakota Fanning, Justin Chatwin, and Tim Robbins. Also want to note that we have cameos by our former leads, Anne Robinson and Gene Barry. They played the grandparents in the remake. I thought that's a cool touch. We have our screenplay by Josh Friedman and David Cope, and music by John Williams. And as a note, I'm just going to say that both of these films are loosely based on the novel of the same name by H.G. Wells, which was published in 1898. I didn't know it was that early. I thought it was in like the 1940s he wrote that, but no, in 1898, so that's pretty cool. All right, Reggie, what is your first experience with either of these films?
I'll put it this way. I believe that this is my first experience with both films. I mean, War of the Worlds, that genre of disaster movie with like the family in it, there was a lot of those movies around that time, so maybe I've seen this in passing, but I don't remember. And just a fun fact, I also this morning listened to the original audio of the radio broadcast that we may talk about some
That's
point.
cool. I actually didn't have time to listen to that, so maybe you can just fill me in on that. I remember listening to it a little bit when I was in school, but that was a long, long time ago.
Yeah, just since you haven't heard it, I can put it this way: if you come in like at any point past like the first 5 minutes, and just imagine what life must have been like at the time, yeah, I could see people getting confused because it's Orson Welles in like basically a theater company doing a rendition of this. It's very dramatized and designed to seem real. They talk about real places in America, like parts of New Jersey and stuff like that. To the observer at that time, yeah, it would have sounded like an actual newscast of aliens freaking taking over the world. So I could see how it caused hysteria because there was nothing making it look like it was fake.
Yeah, that's what I remember from school. Our teacher played it for us, and she's like, when people first heard this, if they didn't hear, like you said, the first 5 minutes, they thought it was real because they're just like doing like a news broadcast of just describing all the destruction that's happening. It's just, they dramatized it, sensationalized it, and people thought it was real, and it creates this whole craziness. But yeah, that's really cool. Going to the films, I had never seen the original, but I did see the remake. I definitely remember. I know you're talking about other films, like I think you're thinking like maybe The Day After Tomorrow is like one of those films that kind of came around the same time. But yeah, I saw the remake, not in theaters, definitely on DVD. Yeah, I just remember a lot of destruction. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I don't want to give my hand away too early here. So yeah, and I had never seen the remake until watching it for this podcast. Very different films, pretty much. I think we talked about this beforehand. There's like a handful of things that are the same, but there's so many differences, which we will get into after I go over the synopsis. So this is a very
good luck with this one.
Here we go. Both movies open with a voiceover telling us that we are being watched. Strange objects arrive from outer space. Turns out it's aliens and alien crafts. When they arrive, an EMP knocks out all electronic devices. The aliens' mission? Conquer Earth and destroy everything. Nothing is safe. People, vehicles, towns, buildings, cities, etc. Nothing can destroy the aliens due to their force fields. Our protagonists are there when the aliens first arrive and witness this wave of destruction. After much killing and destruction, our protagonists find themselves hiding in a house. An alien periscope and aliens themselves search the house for humans. Ultimately, our protagonists fail to do anything to stop the aliens, but the alien invasion does stop. Turns out the germs and bacteria which we've grown immune to over thousands of years were our saviors. The moment aliens were in our atmosphere, the microscopic beings wreaked havoc on the aliens. Both movies end with a narration telling us how lucky we are. The end. Yeah, so it's just kind of funny. It's like, let's figure out how to kill the aliens. We can figure anything out, but luckily, germs and bacteria saved the day.
Which we'll get into more detail in our endings. Yeah.
So everything's different. Characters, it's not even names have been changed. It's just who we're following is completely different. So I'm thinking we should just start there with our leads.
Absolutely. I know we have in the original Gene Barry, who plays Dr. Clayton Forrester, from a top scientist from Pacific Tech. And in the remake, it's Tom Cruise's kind of everyman character, Ray Ferrier.
Who lives in Jersey. There you go.
Jersey, yeah.
With the thick accents everybody's got there.
At the beginning, I was trying to nail down what accent he was doing. I'm like, is he trying to do Boston? Is he trying to do New York? You know, I think he missed a little bit on the accent. I'm not going to lie. The two characters, I think what really jumps out to me initially is that Clayton Forrester, as you mentioned in your synopsis, they're both there at the beginning of a mishap. You know, in the original film, it's a meteorite in this like kind of like local California town. It's like almost like a town of Hicks, real small town. But they're like, oh yeah, we got a meteorite, and don't set up picnic tables so we can charge them for admission and food. Like,
yeah, they just think about that dollar right away. They reminded me of the mayor in Jaws. Like, whoa, we got to make some money here. Yeah. Let's not work.
We can't close down these beaches.
Exactly.
No, it's like if you ever done like a long family trip, it's one of those weird stops you would make along the way, like world's biggest rubber band, the meteorite from space. So that's kind of like where everyone is there. Like there's no real indication that there's danger at that point, to the point that they're like, let's wait for this meteorite to cool off and let's go to a square dance.
And then they just leave 3 random yokels to watch over it. Like, sure, should we have like authorities, like military? Nah, just these 3 random dudes in town. They might have guns, right?
Yeah, that was one key difference, that initially people aren't aware of what the danger is. Whereas like danger is a lot more apparent in a remake, which we'll get into. But I also found that it was probably a smart idea to have the lead be someone that's capable in the sense of a scientist, someone that would be drawn upon in this type of scenario. And Clayton Forrester is almost too perfect of a lead. This Time magazine scholar that runs around and solves mysteries. What's your take on it?
Yeah, he's this really well-known scientist. We learned from our other lead, Anne Robinson's Sylvia Van Buren, that he's a well-known, well-renowned, and well-read. She knows all about him. And she just couldn't recognize him with those glasses and that beard that he grew. That 5 o'clock shadow really threw her off.
Yeah.
He's an interesting enough character. I think you brought up a good point that he has a reason to follow these aliens. He sort of has stakes because he is a scientist, and there's just that quest for knowledge. He just wants to understand and just figure everything out. So there's a reason that he needs to stick with them, as opposed to just, all right, I'm going to Mexico. Screw you guys. Right. There was a smart choice there. I don't know if we want to get into it, but it's very, very 50s, very over-explained. And when he comes to his science talk, just like, what's this doohickey in your truck? Well, that's a meter that reads radioactivity. Are we in danger? I'm not going to really go there.
Yeah, you're right. There's a disadvantage of that style of filmmaking where everything's over-explained and, well, my watch ain't working. Well,
my watch isn't working either. Check everybody's watches. Let's take 5 minutes to check everybody's watches here.
Yeah. Look, my watch is magnetized, and hey, pull out a compass that I know you have because it's the 50s.
Dude, I thought I was like, magnetized. What if Magneto was here instead? That would have been sick.
That would have been pretty freaking cool. But outside of like the cheesiness of it, it actually serves a lot of purposes. Case in point, like making fun of the scene a little bit, but like in the small town, he immediately recognizes what could be causing issues with the power. they know that the compass is aiming towards the meteorite. So like, all right, it takes them a little while, like you mentioned, to get there, but they realize that there is potential danger with this meteorite. Um, and throughout the film, he's able to sort of draw back on his science and just his standing to be places where otherwise we as the audience wouldn't get to see. Like he's on the front line when they start battling the aliens. He's there when they're trying to figure out how to get rid of them, and like it allows him to be in a lot of scenes that we don't quite get in the
Yeah,
remake.
he cooperates with the military in the original. There's no cooperation with the military with our Tom Cruise at all. It's just from that everyman point of view. So it is different because you're more on the front lines in the original as opposed
Right.
to in the remake where you're just sort of on the receiving end of trying to get away, just trying to be safe, and if anything happens, it's not because we want it to happen.
There's strengths and advantages to both. There's a strength in someone kind of giving you some backdrop on this mystery. It's still a mystery to everyone how these aliens operate, but we're getting a little bit more information because of we know nukes don't work. We know the guns don't work. We kind of know why. Maybe explain in great great detail, but we know why. However, there is something to be said about also seeing the end of the world from the perspective of an everyman. It puts guys like you and us in the shoes of saying, well, how the hell are you going to get out of this? I think that making Tom Cruise's character, he's still cool, like you can tell that he's kind of a rogue, kind of badass, but he's a very normal guy going through really normal problems at a extraordinary time. Here's the thing, like first I watched the original first, so I'm like, all right, I'm thinking I'm getting Tom Cruise as basically a Clayton Forrester. I thought he was going to be looking at computers and stuff like that, and we get there, he's basically on like he's working off the
Working at the docks.
Something like that. And clearly, like his boss is like, "That's the problem with you. You're cutting out early," and like I don't know. He just kind of has like these little retorts, and he gets in his fucking muscle car and drives erratically and fast back home to get smacked in the face with his real world problems. If he only gets to see his kids on like the weekends or like maybe once a month, his ex-wife's dating a very kind of like safe guy, like Tim shows up in his Suburban while Tom Cruise is driving like the Charger around town. And you see early on that there's tension between the wife, the new husband, the kids. So although Tom Cruise is kind of a cool guy, badass, he's really now at this point a sort of bachelor. His house is in disarray. He's got this fractured relationship with his kids. So despite that tough Jersey or New York exterior, he's got a lot of vulnerabilities that we don't see in Clayton Forrester.
Yeah, he's kind of got two things going. He's got like that external thing with the aliens, and he's got this internal family drama that he has to take care of. So it does create some interesting moments of conflict in the remake that definitely aren't there in the original. Because in the original, Forrester's pretty much only focusing on the aliens. He doesn't have any other things that he has to deal with at all. I mean, they sort of make this love story happen in the original, which just kind of... I'm glad they didn't do that in the remake. This is no time for love, man. This is war. We gotta survive here. We can't be making tea in a random farmhouse,
Although the remake will also take its time in certain spots that feel odd as well.
Does. But, the remake does a good job of making Tom Cruise that everyman, but then there's also some moments out there that are just like that doesn't make sense. Like when he's able to figure out he's the only person who's able to figure out why cars don't work. He gets a guy to fix it, so he is the only working car. It's just like, well, you're the guy? I thought you work at the docks. How do you know this stuff? Why does the mechanic not know this and you know it? It was just it's a few moments like that in the remake that kind of take you out of it.
There are a couple moments like that, and I think like I could see in the scenario where this one mechanic, okay, like your kind of shitty local mechanic, couldn't figure it out, but somebody would have, like you mentioned. Like he's not the only person that knows how like an alternator or starter works, or if he needed to replace something. Like there's other everyman guys which is sort of the problem of having him be an everyman, that like you're saying he's the only person that can figure out this solution. Just doesn't, like you said, that doesn't really ring true.
Yeah. But I still think it's the dynamic between him and his family. I think that was more interesting than the dynamic between Forrester and Van Buren, for sure.
I think so. I think that with the family, because you really don't know a lot about his background from the exposition, but I mean, clearly he doesn't have groceries in the house, so I guess that's an indictment on him with the kids being in town this
He
weekend.
doesn't even know his daughter's allergic to peanut butter.
Right. There's another problem. So I think the movie could be, taking someone that may have, dropped the ball in that part of his life and forcing him to be a dad in a very extreme way, to the point where good dad or bad dad, in this disaster scenario, if you're looking after people, I think you're going to step it up in some capacity anyway. But I kind of get what they're trying to show there of him really kind of being a dad when it really matters.
Yeah, that's definitely what they're trying to do. The son. Let me just go into the kids, who they are. So we have Dakota Fanning, who portrays Rachel, and then Justin Chatwin, who plays Robbie. So he's talking to Robbie, and Robbie's like, "You don't even care about us, man. Like, they don't call him Dad, they call him Ray." He's like,
Right.
"You're just a problem to you. You're just going to drop us off at Mom's, so you don't have to deal with this anymore." So in addition to obviously surviving the alien attack, they give Ray this arc of just, sort of reconnecting with his family and becoming the dad that he should be.
Yeah. When we get into the lead characters, I'll have some more opinions about the kids, but I'm 100% with you in the sense that it's just a more compelling storyline. Like the family, the disadvantages of having to like care for children in such a dangerous situation. Like you said, the love in the original film is pretty much shoehorned.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter or make sense. I mean, it makes sense in the sense that I could see that drawing people closer together, but it's not built out in any way that's of any real consequence to the characters.
If they get together, fine. If they don't get together, it's okay, because we had really no stake in their romantic interest. It's not like he was pursuing her before. Maybe if they had been doing that, then we'd be like, okay, maybe they can get together. But it's like they just met and now they're gonna get together while everybody's dying. That's a little weird.
Yeah, a little strange. I think without getting into the lead characters, that sort of overall sort of buttons up our main characters. If you're looking at them sort of one-to-one, it's the serious professional, square-jawed, basically Clark Kent, versus, the rough around the edges family man. And I think that, like I was saying before, I think there are upsides in having both. And there's downsides in both as well. But in terms of getting more information about what's going on, Clayton Forrester all day. In terms of sort of relating to what's going on, I'm going to go with Ray.
Yeah. Getting the information from the original, it can be a little bit too much sometimes. We kind of discussed this before, that like sometimes they throw too much information at you and you're just like, what? It just sounds like techno babble at one point. You're just like,
Yeah.
I guess this is bad. Aliens, bad. We can't hurt them. Got it. So yeah, you just sometimes there's a little too much. It's not just him. Sometimes the military is over explaining things too. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's just the everyday man. Just easy to relate to. Just gotta survive. Gotta make sure my family survives. Easy to relate to. Good story. Easy, interesting dynamics within that too. So points for the remake. Did you want to go into the rest of the lead characters? Because we didn't really go into the girlfriend, or that girlfriend, Van Buren, or did you want to talk about the kids?
Yeah, I think that it's a good idea to talk about them because, as we always find, supporting actors are there for a reason. Like, we can't fully explore the lead until we explore the kids. To your point, the Van Buren, what I liked about Sylvia was that she was also capable. It wasn't just like a swooning kind of damsel in distress. Even early on, she, by showing that she knows about the doctor, she's kind of read up in a lot of the subject matters. She may not be a professional scientist, but she's a librarian at the local university or something like that, and she knows enough about the subject matter that it's not like he's just sitting there explaining everything to her. They may be explaining it to us, but at least she has some equal footing with him in that respect, so we don't have to kind of gloss. I mean, not gloss, but like we don't have to go over things multiple times to another lead character. I think that in a lot of ways she carries her own, but then she does also become a bit of a in certain places. I guess sign of the times they give her a lot of like hysterics,
Yeah.
like a lot of screaming fits, a lot of situations where it's like, hey, we need it to be extremely quiet, or we like don't want to be seen, and you're like screaming. That part I find to be a little troubling, but she also has relationships with other characters in the film. Her uncle being a big one that helped ground her as well.
I thought she started off like, interesting enough. Like you said, she was well read. She knew about the scientist, and then she was even on the front lines a bit. Not exactly sure if she was on medical help or something like that. She had one of those crosses on her hat. They didn't explain exactly.
I think she just had to be there.
But then she did, in addition to being hysterical, she did sort of become the damsel in distress. He had to save her a few times, and then at the end of the movie, he's searching for her. She becomes what he's looking for at the end. Like he doesn't care anymore. He needs to find her. So she starts off interesting, but then she kind of really doesn't do much towards the end.
Yeah, like looking at the setup, I'm sitting there like, okay, we're gonna have some depth to this
Mm-hmm.
character. Like you said, in the beginning, it's there, and then it just devolves into like your standard, like you said, damsel in distress. Where'd she go? I gotta find her. And she stops being
Mm-hmm.
useful to further the plot in any
Yeah.
meaningful way, which to me is it's a big drop because there was space in there for her to be a compelling character and maybe to be right there with Forrester, maybe giving her a scene or two, like maybe she takes the axe
Yeah.
to the periscope. That little change gives you a reason for her to be there late in
Mm-hmm.
the film.
Yeah, and then she can't even handle the sight, the smallest thing of like alien blood. She just like freaks out. So yeah, they could have done.
Blood on the scarf, blood.
She's just you might
Yeah.
as well just slapped her right there. Calm down, woman.
I thought he was
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
slap her.
right.
My wife was sitting next to me. I was like, oh, we're gonna get a movie slap right here. Didn't happen.
So yeah, starts off interesting, but then uh, take her or leave her after a certain point because she's really not important.
I agree. To that point, in the remake, we're looking at Dakota Fanning's Rachel and Justin Chatwin's Robbie. Rachel fits a lot of, especially around the time it was a little bit tropey. Like we said, The Day After Tomorrow. There's a lot of films that do like the disaster film with
Mm-hmm.
sort of twist, but I think Rachel is actually a strong enough character, even being incapable of really helping in any way. But like I think they use her to great effect, and maybe a little overuse. So like every time a big kind of
Yeah.
action sequence is going to happen, you stare into this kid's face and it's like, oh my god! And
Yeah,
then
she got
this
the bug
big,
eyes pretty good.
yeah, the bug eyes were great, and just crazy shit happening behind this kid. That was good. Robbie to me starts to fit into that Sylvia category of I could take or leave him. I
Mm-hmm.
just think
Yeah.
that again it's a similar arc where early on in the movie there's a setup for kind of so much for him, and then it's just this perplexing turn where I don't know, he's just kind of obsessed with fighting back in
Mm-hmm.
a way that's not
Right.
plausible, understandable. It makes zero sense. I thought that the scene on the ferry with him where he's like helping people
Yeah.
and there's that proud dad moment. I thought that was going to be where they made a turn with
Mm-hmm.
him, but they just kind of take him out of the film in an inexplicable way.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you with Robbie. They're butting heads the most, you know. He really doesn't like Ray. He's just arguing with Ray like constantly, and you're just wondering like when is that turn going to happen where this relationship gets mended? Really doesn't
Uh,
happen. And then, like you said, out of nowhere, Robbie's just like, "We gotta fight, we gotta fight." They're like, "A, you're just a teenager. B, you don't even know. I don't
right,
even know how to fight. Like, you just want to jump in there and fight aliens. It's like leave it to the capable people. Like, you definitely care about your sister,
right,
so take care of her. Like,
right.
I don't know why he's so obsessed with fighting. They really never explain that well enough for you to understand it. And then he does just sort of go away, and Tom Cruise lets him go, and it's supposed to mean something, like he's letting him grow, but I didn't really fully understand it.
Okay. I mean, you go from kind of you're having to catch with your son in the backyard, and their relationship is fractured, rightfully so.
Yeah.
The fact that he doesn't know, like you mentioned, his daughter's allergic to peanut butter tells you all you need to know about where he's been as a dad. Really, it seemed the only thing he cared about Robbie, I guess, is that he played baseball. That's sort of played out. Like again,
he didn't even like the Yankees anymore. He's a Red Sox
Boston
fan all of a sudden.
Hit you right in the feels. You know? I mean, that's the ultimate betrayal to his father, that he's no longer a Yankees fan and the big rival. That backdrop is interesting, and like it is interesting to have Robbie be sort of the centering figure for the kid, because Tom Cruise early on really can't get his shit together, kind of understandably, but also pretty bad form for a dad to just be like, I'm not going to explain anything, just get in the car and we're going to drive, and shut up, kid. And you know, like I thought that you've introduced this concept of like the safe space or whatever that is, and Robbie's really the grounding figure for Rachel. The first time I'll allow it, when the military goes by, he's like, we should be going that way. We should be helping these guys. Because he doesn't really grasp what's happening or the scope of what's happening. So, all right, if you think you could take on one or two aliens because you don't know any better, I got it. And like I said, it was great to have him on the ferry, being selfless and helping people. And it's like, all right, we're building this character. Here's the arc. We're turning. And it just, Dad, just let me go. I have to. And he was like, okay. And they give you this sort of false choice of I gotta get Rachel from these like people that mean well. I mean, it's not like they're gonna like steal the kid and like do anything bad to her. They're trying to help, but like he has to make this sort of, in my opinion, false choice between his son and his daughter. And to not get into the ending, I think it's a cop out to sort of reintroduce Robbie. Yeah, but it felt really, really strange to have him go off into the abyss for very loose reasons.
Yeah, and they never resolve their arc. Like you said, he comes back in the end, and they're okay. So we spent time apart, and now we're okay. They never had that moment where they just came to understanding each other. It's like, okay, you're a dick because you do that, and I'm a prick because you're a dick. It's like they needed that moment. They never really had it. That let me go moment, so you could save my sister. The Sophie's Choice moment that the movie sort of throws in there. It did feel weird, and I really didn't like Robbie. After I was just like, okay, go ahead, die, because you clearly have seen what they're capable of. What do you think you have to offer? If anything, you're gonna hold back the military because they're gonna have to save you. So it's like, think, man, your mom. Are you not even worried about your mom's? Like, you stay alive so you can find out if all your family's okay. It just his motivations just they didn't make sense to me.
It's like, they didn't make him a good enough kid. They didn't make him a bad enough kid. Like, all right, he stole his dad's car, but his dad's a dick. So, okay, maybe that's to show a little bit of edge. Maybe it's to show that these two characters really aren't dissimilar. Yeah. He really is his father's son, even with everything going on. But then, like you said, he's not thinking about anyone. I mean, it's weird. He is thinking about other people, but not the people he should be thinking about. Yeah. Like being, saving people in the ferry. All right, nice touch, but like, Tom Cruise, rightfully so, picks a lot of places where he says, sorry, I can't help you. And I mean, those are kind of like the tough decisions you would have to make in that scenario. Like, he is trying to help people, but if they don't follow him and you get stuck, hey man, I don't know what to tell you. I got to take care of my daughter. So he's anything that could be perceived as selfish is offset by the fact that anyone can understand that keeping your daughter safe is more important than anything else in this scenario. And he's never going to get back together with his wife. That's not going to happen. But he does care about his kids. Yeah. And Robbie, like you mentioned, becomes very unlikable in a way. Like, you're doing things that make him noble, but then his, for lack of a better word, stupidity in this situation, when he was gone, I was like, yeah, fuck it, leave him. He doesn't want to live. That's what I said. Yeah. Like, go on. The rest of society needs to move on.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I didn't care about him when he's like, I gotta go, and then Tom Cruise is having this moment. It's like, oh, my only son. It's like, yeah, fuck him. I don't. He's been annoying the whole time. He hasn't really done much that we need him, and he's just got this stupid obsession with fighting the aliens. So all right.
Yeah. I think that it felt like checking off a box, like well, we got the little kid, and I think that just Cruz and Dakota Fanning would have been probably just a better
Yeah.
combination if it was just those two. But I think they're like, well, people are going to drag their teenage kids to this, and they got to have someone to relate to. I think like there didn't seem to be another reason for him to be there other than to be like the kind of dicky teen that they put in films like
I
this.
see. Yeah, just to put a few more butts in seats so teens can relate. Okay. Yeah, I could see that because if you take him out, it still works. The what they did.
Works probably
Yeah,
better.
because then you really just you have this. This is all he's got now. You don't know if the
Yeah,
wife is dead, the ex-wife. This is all he's got. So it's like I really have to protect my daughter, and
you got yourself like a real Last of Us situation there. You know what I mean?
Rachel, you wanted to say? I mean, I'll just kind of agree with what you said. You know, she's pretty strong character, even though she's more of a reactionary character. But I still think she did pretty well with what she had to do. I didn't really, I didn't like hate her. It wasn't like she was always putting them in danger. It wasn't that kind of a stupid thing, kind of like Robbie was kind of trying to put them in danger. Right. So she just seems like a typical little girl in that situation, just like dealing with it pretty well. You know, your dad just killed a guy, and you're still okay, kind of.
Right. I felt that out of any character to feel bad for, I did feel bad for Rachel because of what she had to see. It's like, we often see films where I think about it in the context of if that happened to someone, they're not okay. And you can try to put a button on a movie or, wrap everything up with a bow, but like you don't recover from seeing a river of dead bodies. You know what I mean? Like that, like you don't. You don't recover from seeing people get evaporated and picked up. And like that kid's got a crazy life ahead of her. So does the rest of society, I guess. But like that, Rachel does give you this figure to rally behind because there's not really any other character, I guess, besides Tom Cruise who, it takes a while for him to get to his turn. So I think that she's the most necessary character in this film for any of this to really work the way they played it out.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't work if it's just Tom Cruise by himself. So
nope.
You definitely need her. She's kind of that anchor that sort of like just keeps him relatable to us, I suppose. That because otherwise he'd just be peace. See ya. I'm out.
Yeah. Right. There's a movie for that too, like the kind of like regular dude that's just like fuck this and like survives. Like that's an interesting film too, but it's clearly not the film that we're doing. Yeah. And to sort of jump back into the original, there is no Robbie kind of equivalent, but I did want to say. Just because I thought the scene was actually fairly interesting. The fact that they make Sylvia's uncle like the clergyman.
Yeah.
I did find that sort of dynamic compelling. We'll get into religion in I guess both films in a way, I guess. But you see in the first scene where the aliens kind of come out of their little meteorite, they unscrew the top. And the three yokels wave the white flag, and then they get
everybody knows what a white flag waving is. Come on, it'll be safe, boys.
Yeah. Tell them, hey, we're your friends. Hey, nice to meet you. Zap. A very similar scene, but I thought powerful, depending on if you're into this type of stuff. The God Man kind of walking out with his Bible, doing his the Lord is my shepherd type situation, and then getting zapped too. Although he's not a main character. I did want to mention him just because it does present a religious element that kind of permeates in times in this film in a way I wasn't expecting. It shows you that that they're willing to show that kind of like God ain't really it's not the move here, which I think is probably unusual for a film of that time. And it also builds out some of Sylvia's backstory. Not only is she kind of brain bookworm type of character, she also has this kind of religious background that comes into play slightly in the film. So I wanted to mention the uncle, who I have no idea what his character's name was, but
No, he was one of the better characters in the original for sure. His death was unexpected because you think a movie in the 50s, you think a priest probably going to be safe. a priest reciting the Bible to aliens, you think he's gonna be okay. But the movie's
Yeah.
just like, nope, God ain't gonna
Nope.
help you here,
Yeah.
no matter how much Bible you recite. So I thought that was a bold move, and I think that was a good move
Yeah.
by the original. Just to say that like nobody's safe here, man. Everybody is gonna die
I,
probably, because it does raise the stakes. Because like this God-loving priest is not safe from this wave of destruction. It's like pretty much nobody's safe. So maybe even your lead characters are gonna. We might lose one of them.
right. Right. Like you mentioned, the stakes are driven for kind of all of humanity, and in these very simple moments. The three yokels with the white flags. Nope, they don't want to be your friends. The priest guy. Nope, God ain't working. Then you got military. Nope, that ain't working. And like the movie just in a very rudimentary way, but compelling, shows you that all the things that we would think of in this situation are not working, and that ultimately sort of gets you in the sort of the despair of the situation that they're in that film. The every man take on that, just what you're seeing,
Yeah.
which we're going to get into, it leads to kind of this hopeless feeling.
Yeah, I mean, just you just see everything get destroyed. There's nothing that can't be destroyed by these people. I mean, he's just running for his life, and then the bridge. I don't know what bridge it is, but it gets completely destroyed. It's like nothing can stop them. I have to get away. I have to protect my family.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of like I said, I wanted to mention that scene in the original because I think it was a powerful scene. Definitely one of the highlights of the film. So I
Yeah.
wanted to bring that up. But I guess we should get into the highlight of both of these films, which is your aliens, your big bad monster, the tech that they're using. So if you're okay with it, I think we get to that part
Yeah.
of the discussion.
Absolutely fine with that. Did you want to talk about how the aliens appear in both films? It's a little bit different there.
Yeah. So when you're saying appear, just I know what we're saying, how they show up or what they
How
look
they
like.
show up.
Okay. Okay. I'm sure we'll talk about
Oh
both.
yeah, we'll get into how they look too. But in the original, like you said before, there's meteors, mysterious meteors, just come and crash on Earth, and they unscrew a cap in it, and then there's these other vessels within these meteors. I think it's three because there's an obsession with three in the aliens in the
Mhm.
original. So I think three vessels come out in one of these meteors, and there's like three meteors to an area. So that's just how the aliens arrive in the original. In the remake, a little twist on that. There's not you don't see any aliens, but then you do see this lightning, and you later
Mhm.
learn that this lightning is sort of how the aliens transported their bodies to crafts which were already in Earth millions of
Right.
years ago. So the alien vessels were already here, and they just needed to transport pilots into each of the vessels through lightning. That's a different take on it that usually you don't see in these different alien movies. That they're already here.
No.
Any notes on that? And I should just also mention
Uh,
that the original aliens sort of seem to hover, while the
mhm.
remake ones are
They
tripods. That
he does explain that. They got basically magnet legs, which okay. um, in terms of notes, I thought it was a little hokey in the original. The way they kind of describe it is like, well, a meteorite that large should have left a giant crater, and it didn't. The density doesn't make sense. And then Sylvia's like, well, maybe it skidded sideways before it landed. Like they do all this exposition
yeah,
that leads nowhere because that's not how it works at all. They are limited in what they're showing us based on the time. But even with that, I think that it's goofy in some parts, especially when you really zoom in and see some of the moving parts. But I think design wise, not terrible. I think the idea of like this electromagnetic propulsion mechanism, I thought that was fascinating. Even though they, like I said, struggled to really show that off. The threes thing, I think, was just probably too much. But I will say this: I prefer the method of appearance in terms of logic for the film. I think the remake is probably not probably is a more interesting thing to see. But I think the logic of the original one actually probably makes a little bit more sense in the grand scheme of once we tie everything together, and we'll get to why that is later.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you there. The original aliens definitely look a little hokey at times, but it's not
Yeah,
terrible. You really think like those old sci-fi movies where it was just like pie trays. At least it's
yeah,
not that, you know. So
right,
it doesn't look extremely terrible. But I will agree. I like the aliens arriving all at once instead of already having the vessels here and then
right.
coming in through lightning. Because, like you said, it just logically makes more sense. Like I really thought about it because it was mentioned. Oh, they put the craft here millions of years ago, and then they decided to attack. Well, if they put the craft here millions of years ago, why didn't they just take over the Earth then?
I don't know, like unless they like seeded life and like this is part of their
Right, but
plan, that
now you're filling in blanks for them, Reggie. Though, so it's
I know. I'm just saying that like like I said, the logic has to make sense to me, and I actually prefer this sort of silent threat, something that looks like everyday occurrence. Well, not everyday, but like a inexplainable occurrence, a meteorite. To the fact that it actually had our defenses down. They're like,
yeah.
oh look, we're going to use it for pie eating contests or whatever the hell they were going to do. But that gave the aliens time to sort of set up and scope things out in a way that you don't get in the remake. Just the implication that they put the vessels here previously, thousands of, like you said, millions of years ago, and then they like lightning themselves into it. Cool visual effect, just logically dubious. Like you said, you could have picked any other time in history, maybe a time where it would have been easier to kill people. You know what I mean? Like I just I found the logic, which sci-fi logic is sci-fi logic, but I don't know. I didn't quite understand it, although I did like the visual.
Yeah. No, I like the visual too, but like it makes more sense. Like the original, like you have to amass an army, right? So that takes
Mhm.
time. But it seems like in the
Right,
remake, we already had the vessels, so it seems like you already had the army. Why'd you have to wait a million years? So I just
right.
the whole time just like what? So while it looks cool, it definitely makes a lot more sense in the original.
Yeah, unless I mean, well, Mars is too close. Well, they never said they were Martians,
No,
though. That's the other thing.
in the remake, they
Um,
don't explicitly say Martians. They throw out Martians in the original, but they never. It's never confirmed. That's just some
yeah,
assumptions by some of the people, but it's never like these are definitely Martians from Mars.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is again me filling in blanks or something like that. But like, it could be similar to the concept of anytime you're looking at the night sky, that was thousands of, if not millions of years ago, that you're looking at. Any given time you look up at the stars, perhaps for reasons the capsules get sent first because of the time it takes to travel, and then they have this light speed. Again, I'm being very fucking
You are being
generous,
very generous.
very generous with my explanation. But because I have to be that generous, that's a
Yeah.
downside. Um, the other thing too is, although this movie does a good job of showing scope with the aliens, the original actually I think does a better job with like the different layouts. I did enjoy seeing other
Mm.
places trying to deal with the same problem, and I think that maybe trying to explore that in some way in this film would have been pretty compelling. Again, I'm not too upset because what they showed me was sort of localized, and I understood the reason for that, which is the reason to have an everyday man being your lead. But I do miss some of the seeing other places having to deal with this problem.
I didn't mind it so much. I thought sticking with the local man's area that worked for me. I didn't feel that global sense so much in the original. I know they showed like other locations, and I'm pretty sure they just used a lot of stock footage from like World War II. Um, so yeah, that took me out of it. I'm like, I'm pretty sure isn't that like Europe in World War II?
Uh,
But like that one felt even smaller to me because we did
yeah,
spend a lot of time in that field with the doctor and the Van
that's true.
Buren. So even though it was more localized in the remake, that just felt big. The bigger effects, you can't deny that. And yeah, that I just felt like the original just felt a little smaller, even though they showed more of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So I get that. Where it's like there is a global. I mean, there's a global implication in both, but the global implication is laid out more in the original
Yeah.
film. However, your actual sets. I mean, you could probably point to about three actual sets that they used.
Yeah,
And you're right. You spend a majority of the original part of the film.
by that original meteor.
But exactly, you're in that field for a long time. Even when they crashed the freaking plane, I was like, did they go anywhere?
Yeah, I think they
Like,
went like 10 feet, like down the road. They were still nearby that first meteor because he's like, I didn't see that there was a second one nearby. So they're still
yeah,
pretty much in the same area.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that for sure. I'm not going to begrudge a lot of that because I think, and we may be at this part of the conversation, the actual appearance of the aliens in the film is just done. We know why, but it was done much better in this remake.
The actual physical appearance.
The
Okay,
physical, the
okay, just
physical
wanted to clear
appearance.
that up. Yeah, I mean, they didn't show them too long in either film.
Mm.
The main difference I could think of is just that the three colors in the eyes of the original, and
Yeah,
then you don't more toned back, I guess, in
yeah,
the remake. But they're both naked in both films, so no
yeah,
protective gear
yeah.
for these aliens.
Nah, and I think they're referencing things that they know of the time. Like they mentioned the lenses on the aliens, and it works kind of like our TV, whatever recordings. It's a unique. Well, both of them are, but like it's a unique take on it. I haven't really seen other aliens that looked like that in all my sci-fi viewings. With what they had to work with, what they were trying to portray, I thought that it was a decent character design. But again, scope just like you said, they're kind of piecing together things like you said, footage of random battles, footage of random planes, the way they show the force fields, they're clearly limited in that. Like they might have just putting some glass crap
Yeah, I
over
think they
it.
just put glass
you know,
over a toy model for sure.
yeah, that's what it looked like to me. And they were able to show scope, but again, they're so limited in how they did it. I appreciated the effects that they were using, the periscopes, and I appreciated all that stuff. But ultimately, leaves you wanting more because everything feels a little disjointed. Like you said, you don't see the aliens themselves very long, so I didn't really have a big takeaway from the aliens that I saw in the original film.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really get too much of the aliens in the remake either. But you think there's more? I didn't really notice too much.
It's barely, I mean, slightly in the room, like when they come in and like they're constantly shifting over here, shifting over there. Like you see a little bit of the aliens kind of walking
Yeah, but
around.
it's like it's
Um,
nothing like mind break or it's not mind blowing. You know, it's kind of stuff you've seen before in any alien
so
movie. So like when you saw the aliens in the remake, I wasn't like, whoa, they look so weird. They look like you'd expect aliens to look, and they didn't really do anything new or fresh. And there had been so many alien movies since the original, so it's like they look like aliens. They looked okay. I didn't think they looked necessarily better. I wouldn't say one alien looked better than the other, really.
yeah, the actual appearance of the aliens, yeah, I would say no. I think the remake aliens are a little referential. They don't seem wholly unique. Like they're not very different than Independence Day aliens,
Yeah.
or they're not very different from Starship Troopers. You know what I mean? Like they're I've seen aliens like this
Hmm.
before. Whereas in the original, I mean, obviously we've seen a lot of aliens, but like I'm gonna give them the advantage of being creative and figuring out creative ways to show aliens in a way that I don't think anyone before that had a chance
Yeah,
to.
I'll give the original a little more credit just because they have less to draw from as opposed to like by
Hmm.
2005. There's just so many different aliens that we've seen in movies at that point. Do we also want to talk about because the aliens in the original, their pretty much main purpose is just to destroy everything, but the aliens in the
Right.
remake don't necessarily just do that. They seem to be harvesting humans and
Yeah.
spraying everything with chopped up human parts. I was.
I guess.
Do you?
It,
Yeah. Do you understand that, or can you explain that?
no, I mean I can't because you got the guy. Hold up, you're gonna have to reference the guy because I know you're better remembering people.
Are we talking about Harlan, portrayed by Tim Robbins?
Yes. So Tim Robbins Harlan, who's kind of a hard O, he's a hard ass. They drink us, Ray. They drink. They drink us.
So I was just going to say, this guy who might have read a book maybe once is kind of giving us the same exposition that Dr. Forrester's giving us. He's giving us that much information. That's how like important he is almost. It's crazy.
He would be like one of those like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like Cabin in the Woods type guys. In any other situation, he's just like giving us more exposition than anyone else in the movie has so far. I heard they killed one in Osaka. Where? How? It doesn't look like you have internet.
He's the one that reveals that they've had these vessels for millions of years. It's like, how did you know that? Where did you get this information from? There's no more internet.
Right. Yeah. The CB radio, Ray. I knew it was our time was coming. He's like a doomsday prepper, you know? Yeah. But it's such a very cool scene. He starts screaming like he's seemingly the guy who's most prepared to fight the aliens. And he's losing his shit when he sees what they're doing to people. And it is disturbing. Like they pin you down. There's this weird like hose thing that goes near.
Probing you?
I don't know what they're doing. I don't want to know, man. I guess the ships create these like vein-like roots almost that have blood in them or drawing blood or I really don't know what they're doing. But I know that it's gross. They chop you up, they suck your blood, and then they just toss it out into these patches of vein root thingies that they make, and maybe they're reseeding the earth. Like there must be some long-term plan. I just don't know what it is.
The way I interpreted it, and I'm reaching here, is like maybe they're trying, if they are from whatever planet, they're trying to just make Earth more like their planet. So maybe they need humans to fertilize Earth and to make it more like their planet, and whatever alien fertilizer they use plus humans makes Earth more like their planet. That's a big reach, though. I don't know if that's exactly what they're doing.
I've heard of interpretations like that. Like if they never say there's specifically Martians, but I guess like the red that you start to see and stuff like that. Like perhaps this is a terraforming mission. I don't know. Like not just that. We talked. I see it's in your notes, but like the tripods, the way they suck the humans up into the thing before they pick them up, they suck them up, they put them down, they suck them up. They like there's a lot of steps to get the blood spraying sporadically everywhere. Yeah. There's got to be a better way to do all this. My wife said the same thing when she looked at the tripods in the film, and I see it's in your notes, but they do look like that.
Like my wife said the same thing. This butthole. It looks like a butthole.
Just like the butthole just scoops you up and
just goes back in the butthole.
just weird. Like I don't know. Like it left me wanting because I felt like they got mass and size so right. Mm-hmm. Like lightning bolt. Here comes this giant thing and it rips up the earth and everyone falls in and they just zap you into basically mist, like heat ray you to death. And then I'm just so confused as to what they're doing at the end that like I mean it's horrific. And I don't know I think I'd rather be zapped, dude.
Yeah, if they just stuck with the destruction and just the zapping things, I think it would be a little easier to follow instead of this. Yeah. Like you said, maybe terraforming it to be their planet. That's the only thing I think of, unless they just like blood everywhere. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, because like at first I'm like, all right, maybe they're using humans for like a food source of some sort, but no, they're spraying the blood everywhere. So like I feel like that'd be part of it, you know, the food source. They're not just killing us, clearly. I mean, they'll kill some of or many of us, but I don't know. And even the Tim Robbins, they use this as pets, Ray. Like, they're not doing that either.
No, I don't know. Yeah, so the motivation of the aliens is a little muddy. Like, we're just going to destroy everything. Like, that's easy to follow. But now I'm just going to destroy everything and use some of you guys to paint everything red.
I'm not sure what their plan is, but it takes me out of it just a bit, you know, because I don't know what's happening. And I guess one of my biggest gripes with the remake is I felt like they were hitting so many good notes, and they just kind of put the brakes on it in Tim Robbins' section.
Yeah. Do you want to get into that whole section? Because that section it's sort of redone from the original, but it is done very differently. So we could compare those scenes, because those are one of the only scenes that these movies both kind of share. Because
Yeah,
some similar things happen.
yeah, I could
Okay.
definitely do that because I want to hear your take on
Okay, so
this.
I'm gonna set up the original first. So this Forrester and Van Buren. Just by the way, Van Buren just reminds me of that episode of Seinfeld where Kramer fights the Van
Baby.
Burens. Yeah, eight. So they're in a plane crash, and while an alien attack is happening, he's just letting her nap on his lap, just kind of staring at her, like, "Oh, I'm falling in love here." Like, one of my gripes with the original is just there's not a big sense of urgency. A lot of times the movie just slows down to like, hey, everything's fine. And after like she wakes up in the field, they just find this random farmhouse, and they are just like cooking. They're just like talking about random stuff. It's like they have no worry about what is happening outside. They're just
Right,
making
right.
food, just shooting the shit. So yeah, it was just really weird. Anyways, they decide to hide in the basement of that place after a plane crashes into it.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? Plane crashes in the original house too, so that might have been a little homage to that. Anyways, they're in the basement and they're hiding, and this periscope-looking thing comes into the house and just starts searching. It's like a periscope with a hose instead, right? So
Hmm.
just looking through the house, and then does he chop it right there with the axe?
There's a bit of the hiding
Mm-hmm.
stuff and screaming and all that stuff, but yeah, ultimately he just sort of chops it, and it basically just retracts before they have to move on again because it doesn't just end there. But like, yeah, I mean that's basically it. The periscope comes down, which good you get more of a sense of what these aliens are like, and then he chops it, and I'll give the original this excuse me, that revelation that they do bleed. Like it gives some sense of hope
If it bleeds,
to
we
them.
can kill it, right?
Yeah, it is that moment in the film, and besides, like you said, the parts where they're just kind of meandering about, influential scene in the film once you get to it, which I guess I would say pretty much the same thing about the remake, with that scene. If you want to give the backdrop for it,
Yeah, so this happens after Robbie is like, I gotta fight the man. He's like, I guess. Bye, son. So him and Rachel just take off, and they find a random dude just waving his arms, like, come here, come stay with
yeah.
me. And yeah, let's go with the crazy guy for no
not,
reason.
not only just waving his arms, he's holding up a
He is holding up a
shotgun.
shotgun, yes. So for some reason, he's waving for everybody to come, but only Tom Cruise and Rachel decide to go there. All right, sure.
Mm.
And
Yep.
not long after that, Tom Cruise realizes he's locked up with the crazy guy. But it
E-
does give us an opportunity to sort of recreate those scenes from the original where we do see the periscope come in, and it's done in a pretty good way, I'd say. It's definitely the tension, I think, is a little more raised in the remake. It's
Yeah.
pretty exciting. And then, of course, we have our alien that comes in the house too, which is also exciting, but we kind of already did it with the eye, so okay, we're doing it
Hmm.
again.
Yeah.
I guess I'll kind of say how that whole thing ends. Like, ultimately, Tom Cruise has to kill the Tim Robbins character because he's just so afraid of what's going to happen to his daughter that this guy's so gung ho over fighting the aliens, he's going to just put his daughter's life in danger, and Tom Cruise can't have that, so he has to kill him
Right.
while he has his daughter sing a song, which is a powerful scene, also. But like you said, the movie really does slow down there, and I think
It,
they really kept it in just to sort of recreate the scene from the original. I'm just gonna go on a limb out on a limb and say like Steven Spielberg probably really liked that scene. He's like, oh, we have to do that because there's
yeah.
very few scenes from the original that you see in the remake, and this is one of them. But if you want
Yeah.
to talk about it a little bit, go for it.
There's parts of that scene I like. There's a lot of parts that I like. You've got this crazy alien thing going on in the background, and this is one of the few times watching it where I'm like, what the hell is Tim Robbins up to? He's sharpening the shovel. He's talking to the kid, and I'm just like, dude, I don't know what this guy's up to. He to me felt like more of a threat than
Mm-hmm.
anything, which I guess is good foreshadowing. But I think they spend a little too much time doing a few too many things. Like you said, the periscope came down. All right, we got that, and it's gone. Then the aliens
Mm-hmm.
come down. All right, and then the aliens start to leave, but then they come back because you made a sound,
Mm-hmm.
and then the shoe next, and
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, we gotta move kind of past this at a certain point. I do also like that Dakota Fanning, he's like sing the song and all that stuff. and it gives him a chance to defend his daughter. I know why they don't show it, but you're kind of better off maybe doing like kind of like a smash cuts of like the daughter in the one room doing her thing, and like maybe that voice in the background as you get this kind of like freaky fight scene between Tim Robbins and Tom Cruise. I think showing some of the fight actually would have been more powerful, or at least making it more apparent what was going on behind that door, with some sort of sounds that you really don't get a lot of in the scene. I just felt that that scene could have been a little bit more powerful, especially if they would have brought things down maybe 5 minutes, 7 minutes, just cut some of it out. You may even want to like cut out just some of the back and forth of the periscope if the aliens are going to come down, or cut some of the alien stuff if you have that periscope scene, because it's more or less the same thing 3 different times.
I guess I'll start with the killing of the Tim Robbins character. I think I like the choice to not show it. I think, you know, insert your worst case scenario here. Like, just let your imagination run wild. I kind of like that. So I was fine with that. I didn't need to see what was happening there. Yeah, I agree with you. The sequence was a little long. And after it was all done, the whole let's stop here in the basement, I honestly think they could have cut the whole thing. I think they really only kept it because somebody liked that how it happened in the original and they just wanted to do their own take on it. Like, I think as soon as Robbie, like, he left, I think you could have just had Tom Cruise and Rachel captured right there. And then we could have just cut out 20 minutes, 25 minutes, because it is a much longer movie, the remake, and you feel it. You definitely feel it, especially when we're in that house, because it does almost feel like a completely different movie, because we're not doing the same things that we were doing before. It's just completely changed.
Right.
So while there's some interesting things that happen, some interesting takes on what happened in the original, I ultimately feel like this is the weakest part of the movie, and we probably could have just gotten rid of it.
I agree. It like you said, it feels like a different movie. Like, to my point of feeling like, oh shit, what's this guy doing? Now I'm completely thinking about this other guy. I actually stopped caring about the aliens for a little bit because I don't know what this dude's up to, and like even the character's not thinking about the aliens. Who's like, you got something to say, you say it to me. You got nothing to say to her. Because like I don't know what Tim Robbins' plan is, what he's doing, what he's capable of. So like you said, it does feel like a different movie. It plays against the strengths in this other way that you've got these huge set pieces, gigantic tripods going across cities, destroying buildings, doing all this shit, and now we're in a basement for 30 minutes, not really doing much other than a couple of like tense scenes where they're hiding. But like you nail tension. You nail tension in the open fields with thousands of people. You didn't need to nail tension, like you said, with 4 people. I mean, not even 3 people.
I think they did it is because, like, I mean, like you said, they have these huge set pieces that they work with. But, like, honestly, it's like there's nothing that Tom Cruise can really do against these aliens. Yeah. So I think they had to give him something to make it a little more personal. Like, guess what, like, the average person might be going through, because they can't actually fight the aliens. So now let's show people bickering amongst themselves, which is interesting, but it's not the story we were telling here. So it would be a great side story, like, hey, this is a companion piece to War of the Worlds. It's like, oh wow, that's really cool. But for Tom Cruise's story, I don't think it worked.
You either do it early or you do it not at all.
Yeah, I think it should have been done a lot earlier, not after we already like had the action up here and then we're slowing the movie down to here. It really hurts.
Yeah, I think like there was a space for that scene, like the river of corpses and stuff, like when they stop outside the farm to go pee. Yeah. You know, basically, maybe you shoehorn that in there because it actually makes a little bit more sense. Although you do have to deal with the problem of Robbie being there, which brings me back to my original point. Robbie doesn't need to be in the movie. I find that compelling. If it was just Tom Cruise and his daughter, and she stopped to pee, and then like you do like this false jump scare of like the daughter's captured by this guy, but he's a farmer that more or less is going to help. Maybe you could shoehorn that in, but because you've shown me lightning streets, big tripods, boats, and all this stuff, it's like, all right, we're at this part of the film. You can't do this much of a ramp down and then think that we're going to build back up again, you know? And although there's tension in those scenes, the tension is this quiet sort of, horror film, kind of like Bird Box type tension that doesn't really fit the rest of the film.
That's why I said it would be a good companion piece, like a web thing on the side that you could have watched in conjunction with the movie. But no, it's in the movie and you have to sit through the whole thing, and it's like, oh god.
It does the movie no favors. Like I said, there's a few interesting things that
Hmm.
happen in it, but the overall arc of that is actually, in my opinion, net negative for the
Yeah.
film, and puts a lot of the work that you built into danger by just, I don't know. It's like putting brakes in the middle of like a roller coaster ride, and then being like, hey, well, we're gonna start again. You just give me a couple
Yeah,
minutes.
it's like in the
It's
middle of
like, bro,
300, you just have like a personal like squabble between like Leonidas and one of his captains or something. They just like argue
yeah,
for 20 minutes. Like, what about the fight? The big fight? Come on, guys,
right,
let's do
right.
this.
And and even if you are gonna do a moment like that, because 300 has kind of a moment like that where he stops and talks to
The Hunchback guy?
they're no, the
Oh,
Xerxes.
Xerxes. Yeah.
Yeah, Leonidas goes. He's like, you could bow down now. He's like, ah, fuck you.
But we're still, I
Like,
mean, we're still staying with the plot. It's still like, the
right,
Spartans versus the Persians here. It's not like the Spartans. Now we're gonna have an internal squabble that has nothing to do with
right.
the bigger picture here.
Yeah, it would be like if someone in his ranks was like, I'm going to be in charge now. And Leonidas like, no. And then we got to deal with that for 20
Yeah.
minutes. It's like different problem taken away from the actual problem. And it's not that type of film.
Yeah, cool to see what they did, but
Yeah.
I would have cut it personally. There's a flow. The flow just we lost the flow completely there. I remember watching it in 2005, and that's kind of where I like zoned out completely. It was like, oh my
Yeah.
god, what is happening here?
Yeah. I felt the same way. And then what they try to do to bring me back, it feels a little late. Like
Yeah.
after he kills Tim Robbins or whatever happens in there, we may never know. He kills Tim Robbins. When he's looking for Rachel outside, he's running around. You see the destruction and the blood in the veins and all this craziness, and he doesn't know where she is. And they both get sucked up. Like again, this is another scene where, because I've taken this departure, I'm now trying to remember what the hell we're doing, and I don't know, like the butthole part was weird.
The butthole. But it did give Tom Cruise, like I wrote in my notes, a Luke Skywalker moment where
Yeah, I saw
the one guy just gets to destroy the whole machine because he infiltrates it with a little grenade or bomb.
He's got his little bandolier or whatever of grenades, and he puts it in the beehole, and the aliens just can't withstand it. I think that's a hokey, but I think it's a good thing.
I think it would have been better if that happened like right after the son left. Like they get kidnapped right away and things seem hopeless, and it's like, oh man, what's gonna happen? And then Tom Cruise like pulls out an ace out of his sleeve and he's able to save the day. Like that would have been really great, but you had to slow down for 20-25 minutes, and
Yeah.
do I still care about the alien war? I don't know.
Yeah, or again, like shuffling things. If we knew you were able to kill them before he goes into that basement,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps it gives those two some sort of motivation to work together.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that.
Where like Tom Cruise, like the one guy's gung ho to fight him, and Tom Cruise like, yeah, man, I've seen it. We can we can kill them, but then the aliens are kind of like on foot because they know one of their machines was destroyed.
Right.
Like maybe switching the order makes that make more sense, but you still have the problem of it's a complete break. But it could make a little bit more sense in that order, because like it was inconsequential that he went inside the basement if he just was going to blow up that thing in the very next scene.
Exactly. Like we didn't get anything out of staying in that. I know we keep ratting on the basement scene.
I know, but it's a big glaring hole in the film that didn't need to be there. I also thought that it was kind of crazy, like the little human cages that everybody's in, before they get sucked up. The idea of one of those things falling from that height onto that tree, like,
and not killing anybody.
Someone would have died. Like, there would have been survivors for sure, but like a couple people would have been impaled by the tree and other bad things, and that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to suspend disbelief a little bit.
I'll suspend disbelief for the Alien movie.
Sorry, Ace is just like right by the microphone. I'm trying to push him away. Stay over there, or come up on the couch. Make a decision. Come up. There you go. There you go. Come on up. Sorry about that.
Yeah, but no, you're right. Like the Luke Skywalker moment, I'll take it.
Yeah, it's not the most creative or original, but I think it would have worked a lot better without that basement scene.
Like you said, too different. So to get away from it, because we've discussed it ad nauseum at this point,
Can't
but
more? No.
I could rip on it for probably another half an hour, but the audience doesn't want to hear that. Just like they don't want us, just like we didn't want them to pause the cool sci-fi movie. The audience doesn't want us to talk about a basement for the
That's
next
true. Okay.
30 minutes, or a boot, or how the boot slipped and then it was just there. Never mind.
Yeah, don't
We're done.
overthink that boot because it'll hurt your head. Do we want to talk about any of the effects specifically, or do you think we covered that enough? Like just the amount of destruction we see in each film.
No, I think there's still some space for it because otherwise we're gonna go right into the ending. From the effects standpoint, kind of going back to the original, they do a lot of practical effects, many that don't really work, but I do appreciate their can-do spirit. They do a lot of the bright light on someone and they're not in the next frame. I think there's like a Roman candle at some point coming out of
I think the Roman candle might have been the atom bomb.
Yeah. The movie does, it's not believable alien effects, but it translates. I know what they're trying to show me. You're trying to show me a heat ray, you're trying to show me an atom bomb, so like if I, like you said, suspend disbelief and I look at it for what you're doing, all right, none of these measures are working against the aliens, and when the aliens do that, it destroys a tank or it destroys humans. So like, got it. Even if it doesn't look great, doesn't really matter. You almost look at it like a theater show. Like I saw a play where they were Tuskegee Airmen once, and there wasn't a plane. It was just two guys sitting on a chair. But I got the drama of the scene, so like I'll take it.
Yeah, you watch a movie from the 50s, you know that they have so many limitations. It's not going to look perfect. It got the job done, for sure.
I think it did.
And they show a lot more military action. I do think maybe some of the scenes ran on a little long. It's like, I get it. You don't have to keep showing the military getting vaporized. But with what they had, good on them. Not too bad. You know, after some of the guys got vaporized, you know, sometimes there'd be like a pile of ash in the shape of a human.
Yeah.
You know, it's a nice little touches like that the original had. Not too bad.
Yeah.
The remake obviously has, good old CGI, and this was made in 2005, so, CGI is not what it is today, and it still looks pretty good. I think
bad.
it holds up for the most part. There weren't too many scenes I looked at and I went, that didn't age well.
Even with the aliens, because like that could have been a spot where I'd be like, geez, but like that wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen.
Spielberg kind of has a grainy effect the whole movie. I think that really helps.
Smart.
Kind of that effect that he sort of had in Saving Private Ryan sometimes. The effects looked really good. Like when the aliens first, when the first tripod emerged, I thought that was a really good looking effect.
Great
yeah, like it dug up the earth and it sort of started to spin everything above it. And I thought that looks really cool. And then just watching it rise, and the way people got vaporized, I thought it looked okay. Like maybe the cheesiest effect was maybe just the clothes floating. I thought that didn't look too real, and you do see that quite a bit. But like the big set pieces, like the bridge getting destroyed, the boat getting tipped over, I thought they all looked pretty good. And the alien crafts themselves, like doing just walking and picking up humans, I thought for 2005, pretty good.
It's the strength of the film. Although you have the star power of like Tom Cruise and everything like that, he's really not doing much, to be honest. You could have really picked anybody, but butts in seats, as we always like to say. So Tom Cruise is a good choice, but like the star of the movie is the effects, which I think is why we got so caught up in the basement, because we started getting away from the star of the film. And no, I don't really have a negative thing to say about the effects. I think they look really good. Like I said, the clothing was a little weird, but artistically, it's actually a nice touch.
Yeah,
like the idea that like you're gone, and now the only thing that's left is your weird floaty. Would the pants be that floaty? I don't know if they would.
Maybe the alien ray has an anti-gravity thing too.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's like poof. Like maybe you form a little human puff and that puts your clothes up. Like I don't know. I guess it steams and presses your clothes. Like
yeah. Oh, it's nice and fresh. Yeah. Smells like lavender. Great.
Yeah, no, they were just trying to show you their dry cleaning business.
Buy some dry cleaning from us.
I found the effects to be very strong in the remake, and if you're going 1-to-1, all day in the remake.
Yeah, even when there's not destruction, when it's just kind of like just a set piece, like the day after his wife's house gets destroyed, he goes out there and you just see this airplane just strung over. It's like, wow, this looks, I don't know what's real and what's fake here, but it looks good.
It looked pretty damn
So
good.
it's just visually, yeah, that's what you're here for, man. You're here for these visuals, and it still holds up today.
In terms of that, I mean, really, other than just saying that it looked good, alien designs could have been better, but they weren't bad. Yeah, the remake, that's this remake's bread and butter.
Hmm.
I'll just say in both films, I appreciate what they're going for. The remake just does it better, and they should, given the amount of
Yeah.
time they had in between the
Oh yeah,
films.
it better look good. I mean, there's a lot of times you could watch the original and go, "Oh, that's definitely a model. That looks that looks so fake." But it's practical effects, and you just take it for what is and appreciate it. That's all they had at the time, so it's cool to be able to say, "Oh yeah, that's a toy."
Yeah, even like the toy buildings and like stuff like that they break down, it works.
I'll give it to the original though. That ending when he's just Forster's just going from church to church. That destruction. That was just like, this is the movie I wanted from that
Yeah,
original. So
yeah.
they really ramp it up towards the end of that original. And they don't really do that in the remake.
I'll say this because we really don't. I don't think there's another time that we're going to get to discuss this. But I guess both films sort of have their sort of riotous moment, like the time where like people are going
Okay.
nuts. To your point, towards the end of the original is when you start to see that in the film. And like you said, that set looks great. It looks
Yeah.
like a bunch of people went
Even
nuts.
before that, when he's just running through or he's driving through a deserted city, I thought that looked really good. Like it didn't look
Yeah,
like just like a fake city. They might have had to actually like keep a block like empty in a city. I thought it looked really good with all the
yeah.
trash everywhere and like a baby carriage. Like looked really good.
Looked really good. A little bit cheesier when they steal his truck in the original film. Like just I've been punched. Like I don't know.
It's a great setup though, because it's like the military has failed at this point, so it's up to the scientists, and the scientists are like, "We're gonna do this.
Right.
We're gonna fix it." And then the mob's like, "No, you're not. You're gonna die with
Yep.
us." It's like, "Oh God!"
Exactly.
So it
I
was really
think
interesting.
I think his line was like, they slashed their own
Yeah,
throats.
yeah,
Like compelling. It's powerful stuff. It's like, all right, your last chance is gone because this one guy's still trying to pay people off, and it's like, well, your money's worthless right now. It is an example of if something like this was happening, people really we're not very good in dangerous situations. We freak out, we mob. People, we've seen it before in the past. People getting crushed at like sporting events and stuff like that. Like people freak out, and I think the movie tried to show that a bit. The remake, I think, actually nails that a little bit more. The resolution to me feels a little unbelievable. That if you had people in that much of a frenzy, that they would sort of
Stop.
calm
Yeah,
down.
just because
Yeah,
they heard one gunshot, right?
right. But pretty cool scene actually of Tom Cruise having the only working car, which again creates this issue that we are now having in the scene that this guy's got a car, fucking stop him. And I actually like that Tom Cruise is just willing to like punch it, like fuck this, I'm getting out. Again, that sort of paternal instinct kicks in. And to have this crate, like the one guy's on the front of the car, like
That
clawing
was
at it.
intense. Yeah, he's just ripping apart the windshield, and his hands are getting all bloodied as he's doing it. I was like, wow, just showing the desperation of people just trying to get in this car. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Which again, I'll take it. The gunshot that calmed everyone down. Sure, whatever. Let him get his daughter. Let's move on to the next scene. But I appreciate that they took the time to show us people losing their shit. I thought that was appropriate to show that is how humans would act. And then like the very next part of that scene is the guy who stole the car. He got shot. Now there's just chaos out there. The movie nailed that, and I wish that some of that energy that you had in that scene, translate that over to that later scene that we were talking about. I think the movie stays in a good space throughout.
Yeah, they're able to touch upon just that frenzy, but they don't stay there too long, and it means something because now they don't have a car too. So
Right.
something actually happened as a result of the
Correct.
mob, as opposed to the house where we're still where we were before. We could have went to the house. We didn't have to go to the house. I'm sorry, I keep talking about it.
Yeah,
But,
no. I mean, it's
yeah.
to be discussed.
But yeah, they did it well.
No,
They did it well in the remake with that mob. That was, like I said, that guy just breaking through the windshield. That's
that shit was crazy.
Yeah, just I don't
It was
care about my
crazy.
hands anymore.
Yeah, bet that guy felt real dumb after that.
Ooh, I just lost my temper there, honey. Sorry.
That thing could carry 20 people. No, it couldn't. I can tell you that right
Yeah.
now. That car could not have carried 20 people. But And then afterwards, like you say, he loses the car, and now he has to shuffle just like everybody else. He had an advantage. He lost his advantage. This is kind of the disadvantage of having to worry about taking care of your
Yeah.
family, because he's got to worry about whether Robbie is okay. He's got to worry about what the daughter's going to see. So strong scene. They're not one to one between films, but another scene I think we should bring up because, like you said, that set looked great on the original. The scene was great in the remake.
Yep. Since that scene's kind of towards the ending of the original, should we just go for the endings?
I think so.
Okay. Well, first off, Van Buren, she's like in a bus with a bunch of people, and that bus takes off, and Forrester follows her in like another vehicle with all the supplies, all the science supplies that will help us get rid of these aliens. And they're driving through the empty city. The mob comes. He gets separated. It seems like all hope is lost. He doesn't know what to do, and then he just remembers something that she said about going to church or something like that. So he's like, okay, I gotta find Sylvia. So he goes, Sylvia, was it? Okay.
Yeah, Sylvia Van Buren.
Yeah, I just remember Van Buren. So he goes to a church just looking for her, and then he can't find her. So he doesn't know what to do to save humanity. So he's just gonna go from church to church, pretty much just trying to find Sylvia. And like I said before, as he's going from church to church, there's this destruction that you haven't seen in the movie yet, because it was mostly in that one field, and just like everything's just getting destroyed. It's heat rays going left and right, and everything just looks red, and then somehow Dr. Forrester is not getting hurt at all.
Yes, this thing's crashing. He's like, shit. Look out for that.
Not getting hit with the heat ray either. And then ultimately he does go to a church and find Sylvia. They just embrace as the church is pretty much getting attacked by aliens, and then everything just stops. And then they go outside, and then they see that one of the alien crafts, or probably the alien craft that was shooting at them, is just suddenly crashing into the building. They're like, what's going on there? And then one of the doors opens up, and then you just see an alien hand kind of just flop out. And it's like, what happened? And then good old narration to tie everything together in a nice package.
When the guy like pokes at it and then like checks his pulse and it's like, what are you?
Yeah, I love when he
bro?
checks his pulse. Like, okay, it clearly
like,
has the same anatomy as us.
Hey guys, this one's dead. I know the anatomy of the aliens that we have no idea how they work.
Checking the wrist or pulse.
These things could have gills, like they could, like who knows, bro? What's going on?
Check for a pulse.
But
yeah, pretty much a voiceover comes up and tells us it was the germs and the bacteria that we grew an immunity to. And, I guess we'll talk about religion in a bit, too. But it just says, because God put all that here, that we're...
God in his infinite wisdom.
He put that bacteria to save us from things just like this.
The smallest of our Earth's inhabitants, germs. Bacteria. The aliens were not prepared for it. We will get into the religious aspect and talk more, but I guess let's do the remake before we go there.
So the remake, after Tom Cruise does his Luke Skywalker thing, and then the cage falls down and it breaks, they just start walking, I think.
Yeah.
And they're walking, and then they get to a town or a city, and then those bloody vein things, they're no longer looking good. They're looking a little decayed and kind of turn to ash in your hand as you pick them up.
Dust, something like that.
And Tom Cruise is like, what's happening? And he sees a military guy. He's like, I don't know. It started dying, man.
I'll keep it moving.
Just keep going, man. And but they still have to kill one. He's like, look at the birds. There's no more force field. Look at the birds. And they're able to, with a bazooka, take out the last tripod in that area. And again, in voiceover, this time by Morgan Freeman, of course, we learn that the bacteria and germs are what kill the aliens. No mention of God this time. But still the same thing, that it's the germs, which we grew an immunity to over the years of evolution. So that's how that ends.
I'm going to tell you, man, the original ending works better for me. In the sense that they have exhausted all of their resources. That's clearly laid out because, again, we know who Clayton Forrester is and we know what steps they've taken, whether it's the atomic bomb, the Air Force. And this is all over the world that humanity's just been wrecked. The last thing they have is their faith, I guess, their belief in whatever's coming next, because this hell on earth is that's it for them. They're all assuming that there's no more hope, and it's super heavy-handed and on the nose. But they're in a church. when all was lost, the roof is literally coming down. The aliens are at their doorstep. They just stop, and there's that miracle you were looking for. The implication is a little goofy, like the idea that God thought that the aliens would come and destroy most of the earth. So luckily, though, he had germs, and that's what saved us. Like that's a little kind of ridiculous that this is all part of the master plan, I guess. But I guess the Lord works in mysterious ways, Dan. But I just felt that the idea of like their hopelessness in that moment, and the fact that there's actually an action happening as the aliens die, like this is an action scene to an extent. It felt to me like a better way to show the same ending.
Mm-hmm.
Both your heroes are in complete peril as we find out the aliens are gone. In the remake, it's just like, whew, got out of there. Well, let's keep walking. And then they just kind of like walk into someone that explains, well, yeah, they just stopped, man. And it was like, oh, okay. And then they walk some more. I guess there's that javelin, but that didn't really seem to matter at that point. And they just kind of walked to Boston. And then the family's there, and Tim's there, stepdad, and the grandparents are there. And Tom Cruise just beat the shit. Here's your daughter. Oh, hey, son.
Yeah, Robbie's there. Oh, my God. Robbie, who no way he would have survived.
Would not have survived.
We saw a huge explosion that he ran into. So he's definitely dead. And how would he know how to get to Boston?
I don't know. Again, to me, it's a cop-out. It's like we need the everyone's happy ending. And it's not a happy thing that's happening. Like most places on the earth were destroyed. It's going to take us years to rebuild civilization. Thousands, if not millions of people are dead in the blink of an eye. And your daughter's not going to do well based off everything we saw. So like, it's just too clean. And my real issue with our lead, when it's all said and done, had nothing to do with him. Besides the Luke Skywalker moment, nothing else of consequence is done by him. So I didn't get the same sense of hopelessness into the miracle as him just kind of like walking and finding out the aliens are no longer alive. It just didn't feel great, and it felt kind of like a cop-out with the family at the end.
Yeah. I agree with most of what you said there. Just trying to think of where to start. I guess I'll go with I forgot to add that Robbie was still alive at the end, which is stupid. Just have him dead. Why do we need that? Like, do we need to have like all this like, yay, everything worked out well for that family? We don't need that. Yeah, that's a stupid thing. And the remake is weaker, definitely, because it does kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, it comes out of nowhere in both films, and both of our leads are ultimately kind of useless. But I'll say because the original kind of does pin it on God, and they have kind of been sprinkling religion throughout the original film, so it is somewhat connected to one of our characters, at least through Sylvia, since her uncle was a man of the faith. So, and we were in churches at the end. Everybody, like you said, they're just lost all hope, and people are just kind of singing religious songs. Yeah. So in a way they kind of tied it in to what was happening, so it didn't completely just like, well, it was germs. Did you see that coming? It was germs. Oh, germs. Yeah. Like maybe if Tom Cruise was like a scientist working to eradicate germs or something, it could have tied in.
I know.
But yeah, it does come more out of nowhere in the remake, which might just be like, well, that's it. After all we went through, we just had to wait for germs to take effect. It does kind of feel like after everything you had seen, which looked cool, and you were just like, well, that was kind of stupid.
Ultimately, what really makes a difference here is the set piece itself. Like the church of everyone singing, the aliens coming down. This is it. Like, I'm looking at the runtime on the film because like sometimes I'll check throughout the movies. Like when we were in the basement, I was looking at the runtime, and I'm just like, okay. And even in the original film, I started to look, and I was like, whoa, there's not much time left. What are we going to do here? Because I really didn't remember how this story resolved itself. So I'm like, oh, wow, maybe this is the end for humanity, which I should have known better because I'm watching a movie. But like, I do like the idea that like, look, there's nothing we could do, and that is what it is. People were finding solace in their own way at the end. And ultimately, some grand miracle happened. And to me, it didn't even really matter whether aliens stopped or didn't. At that point, it's just like, oh, okay, lucky us. I guess in that sense. But everything they showed me beforehand didn't really matter to me how it ended because I felt that was a powerful moment, whether you believe in God or not. Just like a community of people coming together, spending their last moments together because look, you can't fight it. It's gonna happen. Let's accept it and let's find some peace with each
Yeah.
other. And at that last moment, the victory came in.
Right.
Like again, to me, it doesn't really matter whether that happened or not. Like that message of coming together was more powerful than just all right. I blew up an alien. We were walking and they got
Yeah.
sick. Like they don't give you the same heart or stakes at
Yeah.
that moment. And they could have somehow. They could have, but they didn't. So complete advantage, in my opinion, to the original.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely nailed it by when they had that hopelessness. It's just like so prominent in that original ending. That acceptance of it. Like this is our fate. And when that church collapses on Forrester and Van Buren, they're embracing and they're not even trying to like cover or just duck under the whatever debris comes down. If we die here, we're hugging each other. We found each other. They fully accepted their fate that they are going to die.
Yep.
And yeah, for that that miracle of the germs to come in, definitely you feel it more there as opposed to we're just walking down the road and wow. It happened. Great. We missed it. Oh well. We were walking. We thought we were going to live another few weeks anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely points to the original there.
Like I said, I always think it gets a little hokey when God in His infinite wisdom allowed the entire world to be destroyed, but a couple germs wrapped it up eventually. Like a little strange, little 50s. A little too much of that, in my opinion. But overall, I found that church scene to be actually like if I'd seen that in another film, I still think it's a great scene. Like you got the stained glass, the light coming out from behind, everyone huddled together. When the debris fell, definitely a couple people in that church died too. So it wasn't just like all gumdrops and lollipops. It's a very nice scene. Voiceover, I will always complain about certain voiceovers, and it's a bit of a weak moment from there. And then I felt myself asking, was this about God the whole time? I didn't get that. Was that what this was about?
The voiceover at the end really just kind of puts all the praise. Like, and they got out because God did this, and it's like, yeah, was that the movie I was watching the whole time? Like, this was God's plan to save us with bacteria. It's it's a little heavy-handed there, especially the very end of that voiceover. I think you could have just ended.
With the field of people and where the hell are they going? The Ark?
They're going to Mount Sinai. I don't know. While the religious thing, I'm really glad the remake didn't really go there. I think what they were trying to do was just sort of tie it into what was happening. Somehow related to what people were going through because you were praising God and God did this, so it all connects in some weird way that only makes sense in the 50s. I don't agree with it, but I kind of know why they did it. But you definitely didn't have to. The ending was powerful enough, and I guess just say it was germs. You didn't have to say God did it.
Like I said, I don't begrudge them. It's like, if anyone has like a faith or a belief in something, then absolutely, and that's the message you want in your film, absolutely. Like you said, a little heavy-handed, but I'll take it because everything you presented to me, it wasn't so heavy-handed throughout the film. And because you had the juxtaposition of the priest getting zapped.
Exactly, because you were able to kill the priest instead of having him be like, let's say, our Gene Hackman in Poseidon, where he was leading the charge against the aliens and he used faith to defeat. It's not like that happened in the... If that happened, the power of Jesus stopped the aliens, then it was like, okay, War of the Worlds are getting a little crazy here. But since they were just like, it's germs and God made germs, so there you go. It's like, okay. And since they kind of squeeze that in at the very end with the narration, it's like, all right, you get a pass, I guess.
Yeah, and it's like they could have copped out with the priest. Like he could have been walking and someone could have tackled him and like, what are you, crazy? And they went there, and I'm glad that they did because it just makes the movie even stronger.
Yeah, definitely.
I think like when you're looking at the remake, I know you open with the Morgan Freeman intro voiceover, which is always a strong movie choice.
Can't go wrong with a Morgan Freeman voiceover.
And it often is a decent movie choice to have Morgan Freeman voiceover the end. I think I would have been better off with like Ray at a bar watching like news clips of like Channel 4, and it turns out the aliens, like, I think tying it back into the the world, I would literally take 6 weeks later, and Ray's like at a bar, putting his life back together in some way or something like that, and like finding out what happened in like news stories
Hmm.
versus like this random voiceover after aliens kind of died and keep walking and hey, it's my family. And Morgan Freeman, it is all right. After thousands of years, survival of the fittest. We and man alone has earned the right to be here. It's just like no, and also like that means these aliens' plans are
Yeah,
shitty.
they had millions of years to plan, and they didn't account for like germs, bacteria. Like they did not know about that with their advanced technology. They didn't realize that there were these microscopic beings that might affect their immune system.
All this technology, all this planning, all this time. I don't know. I don't know. There could have been a better way to do
Yeah,
that. You know.
that's once again why it's better that the alien. This is the first time the aliens have come to Earth because that maybe they're a little less not. They know a lot less about like us and like what's in our atmosphere and stuff,
Oh,
as opposed to these aliens that planted this millions of years ago. It's like, wait, when they planted it millions of years ago, they didn't die then. You're making me ask these questions I shouldn't be asking, and
right,
it's a big
right.
sin movie.
And it's like again, like in my weird scenario, which again I don't know if the science works, but like in the sense of like and maybe it's what the veins or the roots are. If you are seeding a planet, I guess perhaps the seeds went without any like guidance and they just drill into the ground or something like that. But again, that's not what you said. You said they came, they planned it, and if they planned it, they should have planned for that. Um, I think even we would plan for that as a society if we were sending people to space. Like maybe you only do one of the pods and see how they take to it. Like there would have been a research team to report back and
Yeah.
say this is how this works before you send the full wave. And as you mentioned with the original film, like it's waves. The army, it takes a while for them to gear up and amass their forces and do their thing. Whereas here, it's all at once, but they've also been planning it, and they didn't think that the atmosphere.
Yeah,
It's weak. It's
it's
a little
weak.
weak.
Yeah.
Oh,
I did have something to add. You had mentioned that, yeah, maybe Tom Cruise should maybe have found out about it weeks later. And I think, yeah, you could have gotten rid of the voiceover. And maybe in addition to having him find out about it weeks later, you could just show, like, how society's starting to rebuild and just, like,
right.
the after effects of this alien invasion. You could have went somewhere that the original film didn't go, and it could have been very interesting. But you went for the voiceover and pretty weak.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
I
could
mean,
have
like,
and you could have resolved the Robbie thing too, because they didn't really have a resolution. They just said, "Hey, hey, you're alive, you're alive. All right, we're buddies again." It's
yeah.
like it's just bad choices.
I mean, you got Tom Cruise working like in the docks, and that could be anything. That could be construction on the docks. It could be anything. So like maybe like because we do a lot of arcs in films, maybe he's turning his life around, and before he's not keeping things in the fridge, and he's doesn't know his kids' birthdays. I'm assuming. So perhaps he's working on rebuilding parts of the city. And he's talking to a guy he's working with. He's like, yeah, man, I heard it was the germs that did it.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, really? Like
yeah, yeah.
there's a way to show your character finding growth because there's really
Right.
nowhere for us to plant Tom Cruise when this is done. And,
Yeah.
and what I mean by that is Tim is still alive. So stepdad's alive. The mom, who looked like she was pregnant with another kid, she's okay with the grandparents. The kids are okay in Boston. There's nothing for Tom Cruise to go back to.
Yeah, you literally, when you were saying that, I was thinking you literally could have shown him rebuilding life while he's rebuilding his own personal life.
Yeah.
And that would have been, yeah, it would have been somewhere for him to go. Like you could have had him like had a little more tension with the ex-wife and her husband maybe in the beginning, and then at the end of the movie when he's rebuilding the life with his family, he's okay with his wife having moved on and everything. Like he could have had more of an arc than he did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's all straight. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
he's not a bad guy, but he's not a great guy,
Yeah.
and he's just really middle of the road kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't know why they broke up, presumably because he's just kind of, I don't know, just does his own thing
Yeah.
and doesn't really care about other people to an extent. And it's just like, we're doing this, and then we're just doing that, and then it ends, and we never moved.
Yeah.
I guess he took care of his daughter, but it didn't feel like because he was learning. It just felt like he
Yeah,
into the world.
Survival instincts, that's it.
Yeah. I just never found that he changed in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and there was opportunity to show it though, as we just demonstrated with our fine tuning of the ending there. So
Yeah. Look, in the perfect world, I would go back. I would cut, if not all of the basement scene, I would cut a decent amount of it, and I would give us. I think a lot of movies like this, and we've seen it in other films, where you start to rebuild, you start to come back together, and like just putting him like he quit his job, if he even still had a job, and he started working rebuilding shelters. Like just him in a hard hat with a hammer talking to people is a better ending than everyone's happy and we bye.
Yeah. I don't want to keep rewriting the ending.
Yeah.
But I will rewrite the basement scene one more time. As you were saying, that, I was thinking, what if they did the basement scene, just don't have Tim Robbins' character there, just have Tom Cruise and his daughter there, and then they still have to avoid the eye, and you still have the scenes from the original movie, but you don't have to have this other added drama, human against human. I gotta kill him. Yeah.
And guess what? Might as well have, because Tim didn't do anything other than say a couple lines. It would have worked just as fine as if they went into the basement and there was like a radio there and they were talking to someone somewhere else. I heard this, and then it ran out of batteries.
There you go.
Like that's a better scene than what we got, because then you still got to hide from the aliens. And you're hiding around, and the fight happens, but like we don't see it, and it doesn't matter really whether he won or not, because here come the aliens anyway. Yeah, I could see another rewrite in that basement scene.
All right, that's the last time I'll bring up the basement scene. I promise. I'm so sorry everybody had to listen to 7 different scenarios in the basement. Is there anything else, Reggie, from either of these two movies that you want? That was my dog. That was weird as shit. I thought he was speaking. Sorry, I'll say it again. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Yeah, go on.
Well, I had another Lord of the Rings style, and no, I'm just kidding. I'm done. That's enough for me.
Okay. Well, since there's nothing else to talk about, there's only one thing to talk about. That didn't sound right at all. Reggie, it's verdict time. Should the remake exist?
You know what? If you were asking me just off the strength of the first half of the film, I would have said there's no doubt in my mind that this remake should exist. Between Robbie, between the basement, between the ending, they start to get me to that point where I'm saying no, Dan. I'm teetering that line. But I will say this: that visually, what they presented was intriguing. The first half of the film is very strong. In a way that I will allow for a lot of what happened on the back end. In the perfect world, Robbie's not in the movie. In the perfect world, that basement scene shorter or gone. And that basement scene is the closest thing I have to saying this movie shouldn't exist. But when you're talking about 20 minutes and what overall is a serviceable film, I think the remake should exist. But with this caveat that a better one should exist. That someone should have really taken this and given this subject matter the space that it needed. This feels like you said, The Day After Tomorrow, 2012, whatever those movies were at that time. We did a lot of them. This just feels like, we can do one with Spielberg. It didn't have enough of that heart. That the original is way too explainy and over the top, but like that church scene to me, that may stick with me because I thought that was a very strong scene. The remake should exist, and apparently they're doing a TV series now, which is probably the way to go.
Yeah, I saw that there's a TV series. I didn't watch any of the episodes. I think the whole first season's out.
I think that's probably, if you're going to do things like that basement scene, you need it to be a seasonal thing if you're going to do that. As a film, it just didn't work. But overall, the film is fine. Could be better, but it should exist for the visuals. In the visuals alone, my friend.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I'm pretty much in the same boat as you. I came into this going, I think the movie should exist, but the more we talked about that basement scene, the more we talked about Robbie and that ending, I was like, man, maybe they shouldn't. But I think the visuals and just that scale of world destruction, I mean, I guess there are a few movies like that, but I think this is one of the better ones. Like, I'm thinking of like 2012 or even The Day After Tomorrow, like I mentioned before. I think this one's better than both of those movies when it comes to the destruction, and I think they really had a good setup in the beginning. I think that family dynamic, the tension that he had with his two kids was really interesting setup. And you do see some interesting things. I do not like Robbie. If you watch the movie from the beginning up to the scene where Robbie leaves, I think you'll have a really good time. And just know the aliens are going to eventually die anyway. It doesn't really matter. But I think what they did visually is worth having it made. So I'll give it a light. Yeah, this movie should exist because it's pretty. It's pretty in the beginning. I just love it's so action packed. The destruction. It's really well done, and the tension and the music. It's like so intense. Everything's really good in the beginning, and then it just drops.
Yeah, it's like we're on those razor thin margins, man. Where it's like I don't know. Had we have watched this before, like Poseidon, for instance, I think I would have been a Poseidon should exist guy, as much because of like how many times I've seen that film. But like both of those movies are right there for me, and I think that what did it in this instant versus Poseidon were the actual visuals.
Yeah, because like. You think War of the Worlds and you see what they were able to do in the original. Just like I said, I didn't feel that sense of like global disaster. And even though this one was more isolated, it just felt bigger. And it's what I would expect with the War of the Worlds. And same thing with Poseidon. Like when it boat flips upside down, like what they did in the remake visually. And of course, kick them off. You can't forget that one.
Kick them off.
But now we're talking about another episode we did. So I'll give this a slight pass with War of the Worlds remake.
Yeah. Razor thin margins for me, but it should exist.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right, look at that. We're pretty much on the same page with this one, Reggie. Look at that.
Yeah.
Very nice. So next episode, what should we do? I'm gonna look through the notes here.
While you're looking through the notes, I will say this, that we'd be remiss to not mention this, that right now, the reason that we're filming this the way that we are is because we're sheltered in place because of germs. and that wasn't really my intention when we started.
Oh, I thought it was. I was like, oh, he knew that in the germs? Oh, interesting.
No, I just really didn't remember this story very well. My intention was that it was sort of like an apocalyptic world-ending subject for a time, and I was actually trying to get us away from thinking about germs a little bit. But it's interesting, man. Maybe when it's all said and done in divine wisdom, that these germs are what's stopping the aliens from taking us out. So silver linings. But it's funny that in this crazy pandemic that we're in, that we've stumbled upon this very light take on that subject matter. So I'm glad that we did this film.
Well, this one was obviously like this world-ending disaster film. The last one was pretty intense with insomnia. So I'm thinking maybe we should go a little lighter. I'm thinking something a little different. I was thinking maybe The Producers, since the remake was sort of a musical. And, Mel Brooks is still kind of working with both of them. So that may be an interesting take. Like, should he have done this again?
Yeah. I think that right now we need a palate cleanser for sure. The Producers, it's fun, it's lighthearted. I think for both of our sanity and the sanity of our audience, hopefully by the time this comes out, people aren't still sheltered in place and things are a little bit more normal. And we can look back on this. But in the meantime, let's try to have some fun.
Yeah. Let's have some fun with Springtime with Hitler in Germany, huh? All right, well, I'm Dan Bulick. You could find us on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. This podcast is on Spotify. It's on iTunes. If you're on iTunes listening, please give us 5 stars and good reviews. If you're on YouTube watching this, leave us any comments. We love the feedback from you guys.
Yeah, Reggie Parker at RP Comedy on Twitter and Instagram. Of course, follow Retro versus Remake on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that fun stuff. Really do appreciate comments in YouTube. They've been overwhelmingly positive. Any suggestions, about formatting, we're always open to, because this is a work in progress. I think we're starting to hit our stride, but we're always open to new things, and we appreciate the support. So that's all I got.
All right. Sounds good to me. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of Retro
versus
Remake. I don't think that was
All
in
right.
sync at all.
Yeah, we missed the mark, but that's okay.
Oh, well, I'll see if I can get it in post.